Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Today we will explore a little bit a book, The Color Purple. This is our teamwork. Larisa González, Luisa Skinner, Laura Molano, Ruby Morales, and Alejandra Patarroyo. We hope you enjoy the information in the video.
The Purple Color. Silly is a poor, uneducated 14-year-old black girl living in rural Georgia. Silly starts writing letters to God because her father Alfonso beats and rapes her. His father got her pregnant from a boy who is given away to a man and his wife in Monticello, and from a girl presumed dead into the woods. No matter, one day Silly was sitting on a wagon near a store and she realizes that her daughter Olivia is alive because of her resemblance. Silly takes care of her sister Nettie, who is scared of his father, but she keeps telling her that everything is gonna be okay. A letter later, Silly's mother becomes seriously ill and dies, and Alfonso brings home a new wife, but he still abuses Silly.
He wants to marry her off to a mister that later is revealed to be Albert, but she doesn't want to leave Nettie behind. She eventually does marry Albert, and Nettie comes to live with them. But once she spurns Albert's advances, he kicks Nettie out. Silly is miserable in her life and marriage, raising Albert's children and trying to avoid his beatings. Albert is in love with a singer named Shug Avery and resents Silly for not being her. Silly has a crush on Shug as well, and when Shug falls ill and Albert brings her to the house to take care of her, Silly has a hard time hiding her feelings. Shug becomes a friend and confidant to Silly, and Silly begins to find her own voice in spite of Albert. Shug uses her influence to stop Albert from beating Silly, but when she leaves, both Silly and Albert are heartbroken. Harpo's wife, Sophia, is locked up for sassing the mayor's wife, but they get her out to work for the mayor's household as a maid. Shug returns with her new husband Grady, and Shug and Silly finally begin a romantic relationship with one another.
After Shug announced to the family that she has married a man again, both Mr. and Silly immediately dislike Grady and feel desolate that Shug has married someone else. Shug's singing career had also grown until she has become sort of famous. Then, she asks Silly if her sex life has gotten any better. Silly tells her that it hasn't. Shug sleeps in Silly's bed that night, and the two begin talking. Silly confesses her life story to Shug for the first time. She eventually begins crying, and Shug kisses her, which turns to them having sex.
Through Shug, Silly discovers that Albert has been hiding letters from her sister Nettie, who is now a missionary in Africa with Samuel and Corinne.
Silly's spirit rises now that she knows Nettie is alive. Silly decides that she will leave Mr. as soon as Nettie returns to Georgia, and she wonders what her children look like. She continues to read Nettie's letter in the order in which they were sent. Nettie has befriended a minister, Samuel, and his wife, Corinne, and that the couple's adopted children, Adam and Olivia, are actually Sally's children. Nettie joins the family in a mission in Liberia, where Corinne later dies. The letters also reveal that Alfonso is actually Celia's stepfather, and that her biological father was lynched.
Nettie tells her that she and Samuel and the kids are coming back to America soon.
Questioning her faith, Celia begins addressing her letters to Nettie instead of writing to God. Chuck and Grady take Celia with them to Memphis, where Celia learns she is a talented seamstress and begins to make pens. Pa dies, and Celia inherits his house, land, and jewelry store because it all actually belonged to her real father, and then to her mother. She moves back to fix up the house, and Chuck falls in love with a 19-year-old flute player. She takes off with him. Then Celie and Albert become really friends, as Albert seems to have changed his ways. An important aspect is both of them love Chuck and have been left by Chuck. Shortly after Chuck leaves, Celia receives word that the boat carrying her sister and family was downed by a German mine, but she refuses to believe it. Chuck eventually returns, having left Germany, and she, Albert, and Celie live a content life. Sophia and Harpo are back together too, but suddenly, one night, a car drives up, and the homecoming is incredibly emotional for both sisters, who are speechless and weak with amazement. The family gathers on the 4th of July, and many people remark on Tasha's beauty and how well matched she and Adam are.
Alice Walker. She was born on February 9th in 1944 in Georgia. She grew up poor with her mother working as a maid. Alice Walker underlines in The Color Purple the importance of establishing spaces of resistance in an homogeneous and oppressive world. Although the protagonist finally decides to rejoin the family life in the country that Mr. Albert offers her, a fact that may be put into question the success of her emotional independence, Celia writes revealed as a subject with agency, authority, and power. The marital relationship is now a bond based on mutual respect. In this way, the protagonist can be catalogued in the same way as the novel that she justices. She is wonderful, disobedient, and encouraging. The author at the same time wanted to highlight the diversity that we have nowadays, in a time when there was no conscience about LGBTQ+, and transformed in a story which is centered in love beyond tragedy.
I'm gonna talk about stylistic characteristics. So, first of all, it has a free way of writing without thinking too much about the form it should be written. They just wrote as they felt it was necessary to express all their life. Nevertheless, we can find a use of direct speech that makes those experiences dramatic and immediate. Also, we can find a contrast between Nettie, that was more educated, and Sally, less educated, but she expressed herself freely anyway. Second, the book brought people's attention and showed them through the letters how to empower the fight of feminism, being a black woman through small actions in a world full of male chauvinism. And third, God has a new meaning and image in the book because it was completely different and out of the concept that the religion made around God, the physical appearance, the behavior, and even the words. Okay, so in this part of the metaphors about Nettie's letters into the water, it was a representation of the way Nettie felt alone, like drowning in her own mind and swallowing her words because she couldn't send the letters to her sister, and about the colorful pants. This is an extraordinary metaphor in the book because along the story, it shows how Sally knows and tries this new clothing for her with fear at the beginning because it was something unknown. Nevertheless, day by day, she found a meaning, expression, power, and comfort in this piece of clothing because she made this into a business for her independence as a woman. Okay, and the book was realistic due to the fact that shows all the circumstances and issues through graphic descriptions that Sally had to go through in the most honest way possible without making up the situations to make them softer, like for example abuse, humiliation, and loneliness among others. And about the symbols, we have God, that at the beginning Sally had a different perspective of God as a man with a specific behavior that should guide and listen to her, but thanks to the time and shot, she changed completely the way she saw it. Therefore, she started to think about God as everything that she could see, touch, or hear in her daily life, like in nature, the air, the colors, and even the small activities that she did, that she liked to do.
The title, The Color Purple, means the change and transformation that the protagonist experiences through her life in the book. Cilly's lifetime occurs after slavery has been abolished and before the women's rights movement. So there is a lot of racism and sexism in the book. This book is about the oppression of women by men and the journey of gaining control of their lives.
Well, now we get to thematic discussion, and for this part we have the question: how can love of different kinds, romantic, filial, friendship, help overcome abuse? For answering this question, we have to take a look at Sally's perspective. And Sally experienced a lot of unfortunate events since her childhood, and the only light in her world were her sister and mother, although her mother also neglected her. Sally's love for them was so important that she decided to be strong to take care of them. Later, when she was all alone because her mother died and her sister was forced to leave the house, Sophia, Shug, and Mr. Albert's sisters became part of her life. They were the ones who make acknowledgments to Mr. Albert, her husband, that Sally was a person who had needs and not just an object of sex, cleaning, and cooking for her husband. Therefore, that her friends stood out for her when it was required made Sally grow her self-esteem and became more aware of the problems of her surroundings and not follow those toxic social patterns that have oppressed her for so long. Moreover, her romantic relationship with Shug was one that reinforced her confidence as a human being and to make decisions for herself. In conclusion, we can say that love can help a person to look for a way out of their problems and traumas, because it is the love for oneself and the people that matter in our lives that give us the strength and courage necessary to face those issues and demand to others for a better treatments in our lives. Basically, asking for dignity. Furthermore, the writer from this book got inspiration from real events that happened during her childhood and worked as an activist with personal experiences from other people who got in touch with her, molded her idea for this story.
Now, let's play a game. You will find this link in the description box below. In the game, you have to answer some questions about the video. Do not worry, I can assure you, you are going to enjoy playing it.